Hi, Joyce.
Hi, Anne.
I was thinking today that we could talk about my stomach and my guts and yours and adopted people's.
All right.
All right. So, I have been obsessed with yogurt for the last couple of months, and I eat it quite a bit, and my stomach always hurts, and I make a lot of noise, and it's uh, and part of me knew it was the yogurt because I'm lactose intolerant, but my brain told me eat yogurt, eat yogurt. And before this, it was espresso that I could feel it hurting my guts and my stomach, but my head said, drink it, drink it. And I have given up both the espresso and the yogurt. And for the first time, perhaps in my life, my intestinal system, my stomach and my intestines are not upset. And I feel very calm there. And I'm realizing that having an upset stomach is something that I have had almost my whole life. Like going to school as a kid would make me anxious. And so eating a lot of sugar or would be a way to create upset in my stomach so that I had something tangible to feel. I think that would represent the confusion I had in my brain that I didn't know how to process. I don't know if I'm saying this clearly enough, but I feel like it's not an uncommon thing for adopted people to have abdominal issues. And I'm wondering if this is something you've ever run into in your own life or in your practice.
Well, there's a couple of pieces to this that I think are important. One, the little you wasn't putting together all this stuff
No.
about how, so but that doesn't mean you weren't having anxiety. Anxiety manifests itself often in the stomach.
Mm.
Little kids have stomach aches when they're anxious or before you're going on stage or you have a big game or whatever. Stomachs are, that's anxiety sits there a lot of the time. But I want to take it back a little bit. Um, there are many different reasons why there may be stomach related issues or gastrointestinal related issues. One is many times, and this is so general, and I don't want anyone to take me too seriously about the generalness of this. I mean, not every first mother, birth mother during her pregnancy eats poorly, but many do, and many are suppressing the idea of the pregnancy because it's conflicting for them at that point. And this isn't judgy or anything. It's just factual. And that can create some difficulties when things are forming. And so it's just important to know that all of those things contribute in some way. And then you take kids who are adopted from orphanages. And in orphanages, children are not fed when they're hungry. They're fed at the time of day that they're supposed to be fed. And so they're not being responded to for themselves. They're being, categorized so that it can work. And again, this isn't judgy. Some places have so many kids and they've got to figure out a way to do it. But it impacts the kids. And so stomach issues are pretty routine in some ways for kids in adoption. And there are many reasons for that. And then you take genetic issues that families who are not genetically connected aren't alert to. Like you said that you're lactose intolerant.
Mhm.
Maybe your parents weren't, and they just had no concept that they should think about that at all. And it makes a difference if you've seen a history of this happen in your family, and then you see a child demonstrate some of those issues you put it together and you take it to the pediatrician and you sort it out. It's a little harder when you have no idea where things are coming from. So adoption, because of all those things, makes it more difficult to ascertain what's going on.
Mhm.
And anxiety is part of trauma, and there
Mhm.
is always trauma in adoption because there's always loss and disruption, whether it's done beautifully or terribly, it doesn't matter. It impacts the child and
Mhm.
others. So it's not surprising. And what you said about what the little Anne growing up in wouldn't have known that her anxiety in her stomach was equal to her head not really getting a picture that gave her
Mhm.
a sense. But older Anne would have begun to think about that, but might have dismissed it.
Mhm.
And at this point, I know that you're in many adoptees at a certain point, and we describe it in some way. I always have trouble with the fog. But anyway, coming out of the fog, it is a term that shows that you are beginning to have more of an awareness of yourself. And yourself, the big self, has a lot to do with identity, but the medium self is your body.
Mhm.
And what that means and how it's impacted. So that's a very long expression. And anxiety is held in different places. And I have to say, you asked about me, and I don't mind talking about me as well. But I didn't have my anxiety didn't sit in my stomach. It
Mhm.
sat in my throat.
Mhm.
I always got sore throats. That's where things,
I've heard so many adopted people talk about that.
and so that is more what I identify with as where my anxiety sat.
Mhm.
And I was a picky eater. I didn't need anything, so there was nothing that was going to disrupt it's funny because I've known my birth family longer than I didn't know them. And one of my nieces in particular, when she was little, it was so funny. She wouldn't eat anything with any color. So it had to be white or beige food. So potatoes, macaroni, butter on her spaghetti, no red sauce. So there's different, and she's not adopted. She's in her family of origin, but I think kids have different ways of figuring out their food and themselves,
Mhm.
and I don't know. This is all uncharted territory in general. I mean, I'm sure we can go and look up some uh, studies and things of that sort, but generally speaking, I think there is something to be said for upset stomachs uh, in this
Yeah,
process.
I think so too. And the reason why I've been so focused on it is in the Martha Beck Wayfinder Life Coach Training Program, we're taught to use our bodies as compasses, and we're taught to feel what a yes is and feel what a no is. And this was very challenging for me. Number one, just even getting in my body was a challenge. And I think I'm finally getting it. And it's been about 5 months. But what I realized was, for a lot of people, the body compass is in the abdomen, right? Like it could be in your heart or your whole body. It's in your whole body. But for me, it's focused in my abdomen. But, as a little girl, I think so much of what was presented to me as a yes, like this is your family, this is what you do these things, to my system was a no. And so I learned to live with a no in my body. Like my body was often saying no, but I had to flip it to a yes. And so I think I learned to almost feed the fire. Do you know, like if my stomach's upset, okay, I'm going to eat foods that make it more upset because that's the language that I live in. And I think that if my system was calm, I would actually find a way to disrupt it and make it upset because that was home. And so for me to have a calm stomach, and to not eat something to upset it, to be in that familiar place, makes me feel like I am living a different life, because I'm actually like, I actually now am learning to what is a yes to my body, that I am safe enough and my body is learning to trust me enough that if what I want won't hurt anybody, you know what I mean? And so that I can actually have to me, it feels like a luxury of, uh, yes, I want this. No, I don't want this. But my system has to be clear in order for me to feel that. And I am curious, looking back, I feel like I would like to figure out how to write about this so that adoptive parents could be more alert to their children's systems, to what to this idea of a body saying, like, what does it mean if your kid always has headaches? What does it mean if they always have stomach aches? And to know, to connect it to adoption, like to look there perhaps first. I don't know, do you have people?
I think that's I think, it, that may take people on the wrong road, and it may actually, look a little von Munchausen, see,
Mhm,
focusing on. So I'm not a fan of that route. But I do think people need more consciousness about things. I also think adoptees can be very rebellious,
mhm,
and and rightfully so. And it's a process and it's a stage of development. And I think in some ways what you talked about is being reverse rebellious. So
mhm,
instead of saying no to things that you shouldn't have, you would say, screw you. I'm
mhm,
having yogurt.
mhm,
I don't care. I
mhm,
am having yogurt. I like yogurt. It's good for you. I'm having it.
mhm,
So in a way, it's a little rebellious because on some level, at some stage of your life, you're not supposed to, or you're lactose intolerant, and you need to think about that in terms of choices. So I think it's much more complicated. And as with anything, it's not just adoptees that have these issues. So we can
mhm,
get a little, this is our problem. You're absolutely right. Some of the things that have happened that led us to this point are directly related to the foundational issues of adoption. But some of them are, genetic. Some of
mhm,
them are, disposition. Some of them would have been there even in your birth family, but your birth family might have known this to be true.
mhm,
And
mhm,
they might not have because things skip a generation and flip around so I think it's all of these things always made me a little worried in terms of normalizing. I don't like the um what word do I want to use? I don't like making everything a problem that really creates more of a feeling of there's something terribly wrong with me, um,
mhm,
rather than externalizing that problem. It isn't your problem if it's related to something that went on around you, and that gives you more control over it. I also think the medical model gets in the way a lot of times and makes you feel like a patient.
mhm,
And I never, in all the clinics that I owned over the years, really had to work to make sure that people knew they were clients, not patients.
mhm,
Because I don't think that heals people in the right way if it isn't an actual, clearly defined physical problem that's being
mhm.
addressed.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. Like, I just throw things out there to start a conversation. And I think that what we're saying is, it is, this is, it's, it is complicated and it isn't one size fits all, but we have to start the conversation somewhere. And I think that so much of what happens in adoption land goes, um, sort of gets slips by just because you can't make sweeping statements about it. But it's not, I love what we're doing because I feel like we're looking at something and talking about it, and there doesn't have to be an answer. It's just like just having the openness to talk about something that it's not the answer, it's the looking at it that is like such
Absolutely.
a relief.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Well, in a little bit, I'm going to go to this restaurant that I discovered. It's in Midtown Santa Cruz, and it's hyper local food, and the menu's small. So I meet my friend there once a month, and we order everything on the menu.
Great.
I know. So we're gonna go, and my body. There's something about being given really beautiful, well prepared food. That's yeah. I wish you could come with us. You would love her.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
That's
What are you doing for lunch?
I have spring rolls from
Oh,
my
yeah.
typical Vietnamese restaurant. And so I got them to go, and that is going to be my lunch. I'm going to have delicious vegetable spring rolls with
Oh,
peanuts. The peanuts are
oh, those are so yummy.
and I'm
Wow.
paying my taxes.
Oh, yeah. We love Alex, the tax guy.
Definitely, definitely.
Well, Joyce, thank you for having this conversation, and
Great conversation.
enjoy your spring rolls.
And you enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.